Hi business creators, it's Claire from Clara, and today I want to talk about the last of the ways that imposter syndrome keeps your business small. We're covering off 4 more. So it's rare to meet a business owner who intentionally wants a small business. But when we avoid the work, that is what we unintentionally create, a small business. Now, whether that's talking strategy or personal growth or mindset work, the result actually ends up being the same. So I will ask you, do you wonder if imposter syndrome is one of the things keeping your business small? As I said, there are 2 more episodes in this, so I will link to those in the description for the video on the different ways that imposter syndrome stifles, sabotages, and holds your business back. Now, you don't likely have all 14, that's how many I came up with, in spades, but you probably have a little bit of each and some more than others. So review the 14, see which ones apply to you, and see which ones the tips you could start using to address your imposter syndrome. And always remember that awareness is the first step in making a change. So today's first sneaky way imposter syndrome is keeping your business small is luck. Because one of the major signs of imposter syndrome is that all our achievements are chalked up to luck. I was just lucky. It was a fluke. I won't be able to do it again. And when you tell yourself this, the message you're actually sending to your subconscious is that the responsibility for the creating result exists somewhere outside you, and it is outside of your control. Now, circumstances may well have come together favorably, and other people may well have been involved, but you still played a part in that, even if the only thing you did was show up at the right. Imposter syndrome don't exactly go hand in hand, but this is the best way to start accepting and owning your part of that success. So objectively review, what did you do? However seemingly insignificant or small, what did you contribute to creating that outcome? And also remember that when we review our efforts, to us they seem easy, but they could still have been absolutely integral in creating the result. Once you have that objectivity, or at least an inkling of objectivity, then celebrate what you did and think about, how might I be able to do more of that? Because that's going to build on that success for you. The second sneaky way imposter syndrome is keeping your business small is avoiding experimenting. Now, one of the things our ego wants to avoid at all costs is validating those self-judgmental thoughts. You know the ones I mean. And your inner critic and imposter are always willing to jump in with a nasty "I told you so," like a petulant 5-year-old child. Now, this generally results in avoiding things that don't have a guaranteed outcome because we don't want to experiment. But in business, especially in the beginning stages of business, pretty much nothing is guaranteed except doing nothing will create next to nothing. It's pretty much all an experiment. Now, I can't say if this is still true in more advanced stages of business because I am still in the beginning stages, but I would suspect it is. So the reason we avoid experimenting is because we have labelled failure as bad, terrible, horrendous, to be avoided at all costs. But the thing is, that cost that you're avoiding is actually figuring out what works and what doesn't work for you and your business. So if you avoid experimenting, you won't know, you won't figure out for sure, or at least mostly, if Facebook is a better platform for your business than Instagram or even LinkedIn. If you don't experiment, you won't know if you get better engagement at 9 a.m. or 4 p.m. and so on and so on. So much of this is experimenting. So to start overcoming this, I encourage you to put failure in its rightful place. Failure is a part of growth. Failure is a part of experimenting. Figuring out what works comes with they pretty much guarantee that some things are not going to work. So part of that quest to be able to stop throwing spaghetti, to start knowing what works in your business, is also figuring out what doesn't work. The third sneaky imposter is low expectations. Now, imposter syndrome, when you take away the questions and the 10,000 different ways it comes up, really for me boils down to a fundamental belief of not being capable enough or not being enough to do the thing, whatever that thing is, whatever your dream is. And those repeated thoughts of you can't are just dressed up in lots of different guises, generally as questions when it comes to imposter. So one quick and easy way we use to resolve that tension, that negative feeling, is to just lower expectations. I'd love to make $10,000 a month, but I don't think that's possible for me. People like me don't make $10,000 a month. So what if instead I just make myself happy, think I'll be happy to make $3,000 a month. So you see that lowering expectation. Not only does it lower the possibility of actually failing, but it makes it more like something I could achieve. Now, there's a whole different topic on stretch goals versus achievable goals, but I'd encourage you to ask, is the bigger goal, the $10,000 a month or whatever that is for you, really truly outside your capacity? Or, more likely, is it just a reflection of what you are comfortable with right now in this moment? If you think, well, it's just not for people like me, go and find some people like you who have done the thing or have done something similar or are inspirational, and use them as evidence that it is possible for people like you. The last sneaky way, and this is a pretty layered, complicated one, is playing safe and avoiding risk. So it's similar to the avoiding experimenting, but this goes beyond just tactics and strategies in your business to pretty much the whole of your business. And it's more about subconsciously keeping your business small. Thoughts like, if it's just me, then I never have to worry about paying somebody else. Or if I just sell a few, then I never have to worry about dealing with lots of people, or I never have to worry about dealing with lots of things, or lots of posts, or lots of bookings, whatever that is. And the thoughts run along the theme of the smaller the business is, the easier it will be. Now, whether that easier relates to stress or freedom or money or even fame, there's so many different ways that we think it will be easier or simpler or less risky. So what underlies all of this, what underlies the playing safe mentality, is a negative association to a perceived outcome. So we think that getting bigger will have these negative effects. So to start unpacking this, you need to identify, what is that negative consequence? What is the concern that my subconscious, regular bookkeeping? Is it having to get outside help to be able to keep up with the demand? There's lots of different guises this comes through. So how you can start to figure it out and address it. So first, try finishing this prompt. If my business was successful, I would have to. So this is a sentence starter. If my business was successful, I would have to. And then add in all the things you don't want to deal with. Secondly, then, we're going to counter that by asking, if my business was successful, would it be worth dealing with that thing, those things? So if you put on the first one, if my business was successful, I would have to do regular bookkeeping. Then in the second part, we're going to ask, would having a successful business be worth doing regular bookkeeping? Now, for me, the answer is yes, but it may be a different answer for you. And then lastly, we take those concerns and we start to plan some mitigations, some ways to work with those consequences. So how could you make it easier? Could you get help? How could you make it less stressful? How could you start practicing? Would also be a really good one. So would it be worthwhile doing regular bookkeeping? No, I hate doing bookkeeping. It's confusing. Whatever the reason is, that's totally fine. So could I outsource my bookkeeping if my business was successful? Probably. Could I save 3 months of salary before employing somebody else? So there's a buffer, so I don't have to necessarily worry about making that person's payroll every month. Like, there's lots of different ways you can proactively plan to deal with the circumstance before the circumstance arises, and then take away some of that fear of that negative outcome. So those are the 4 ways. How can you reduce the impact? So remember, imposter syndrome does not have to run or ruin your business. Instead, use its insights, like addressing the concerns it raises actually is addressing the thoughts that happen just below your consciousness. They still exist. Ignoring them does not resolve them. There are fears, limits, unhelpful beliefs embedded within you, embedded within everybody, but it's entirely possible to succeed with imposter syndrome. But it can be really useful, really helpful if you can actually start addressing some of the ways imposter syndrome is keeping your business small. If this video has been useful, I would love you to give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments, what is your biggest imposter syndrome sabotage? And you can always subscribe for more content like this on visibility, imposter syndrome, and mindset for solopreneurs. And I will say, if you need my help to tame your imposter, then reach out. We can have an absolutely free, no obligation chat about what sort of help you might need.